Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues. This is the sequel to the film Anchorman, and it's bringing back Ron Burgundy and the gang after Ron Burgundy and Veronica Corningstone have been sent to the majors and been doing the big news, but unfortunately they're doing the late night or early morning news. And then Veronica is given the big 6:30 news slot, and Ron is fired. And Ron gets really upset about this and decides he doesn't want anything to do with her because she got this amazing opportunity and he did not. And he leaves in disgrace, but is eventually offered a job at GNN, the Global News Network, which is the first channel to have 24-hour news. And Ron gets back the old news gang with Steve Carell, Paul Rudd, and David Koechner all back together so they can run this new time slot, and he does better and better at GNN and tries to win back Veronica Corningstone. I can't think of very many memorable comedy sequels, where comedy sequels oftentimes are funny, they're silly, but they're really not as good and they don't hold up as well. If you're a fan of that franchise and that film, you'll be into it, but no one's really going to watch it other than that. And I think this film definitely falls into that. Not that I expected any differently. I kind of expected like Wayne's World 2 material. It's definitely very hilarious and I laughed quite a bit through it. But I think with Anchorman, there's so many jokes and there's so much comedy going throughout it that most of the time I'm laughing. Some of the time, just because there is such a variety of jokes, some of the time I'm not, but I think it kind of wears on me because, especially with these films, they do the structure thing and the non-structure thing at the same time, which I usually don't like, but for some reason in Anchorman films, I'm okay with it because often it's like pretty hilarious. Even like the whole scene where he goes to Megan Good's family's house for dinner, that really, you know, could be completely cut out of the movie, but it's very funny, so it's like, who cares? The way Adam McKay directs films with social issues, he's not really a satirist. He's just trying to use these platforms to kind of like inform people of certain things about like what's going on in politics and in corporate culture. And I saw him do that in The Other Guys with the end credit sequence, which really felt kind of tacked on. And then in this film, he does this whole thing with the guy who runs GNN is obviously kind of a Rupert Murdoch stand-in. If he was really dedicating the film, this film is kind of a send-up of infotainment and Fox News and things like that, but it's really not trying to do that. It's more of a long character sketch of Ron Burgundy. And so it's just kind of like a background thing that he doesn't kind of addresses, but doesn't really, and is a little unnecessary. It feels a little distracting in the end. He's just stopping the movie. The old man McKay has to shout some things at you about politics and what's going on in the world, but he's not really using it to be funny. You know, all the things about this movie that are funny have nothing to do with the issues he's talking about. I wish he could combine the two, and clearly he seems to want to talk about these issues, but he just seems to like bringing them up so you might think about them, which is very presumptive of him, and I kind of feel like it's a little inappropriate. I liked it a lot more in Other Guys than this. It was like, it was pretty easy to figure out it was Rupert Murdoch, and he wasn't really a funny character, and I didn't think they casted a particularly great Australian, if that was an Australian actor. I don't know much about that guy, but he wasn't particularly funny. There's a big battle fight scene like in the original Anchorman with way too many cameos, and towards the end of the film, as it goes on, it seemed to be not as funny and almost seemed to wear on me. I mean, this is a 2-hour comedy. It was kind of fun seeing all those cameos, but it was a little too Austin Powers-y for me, frankly. I love Steve Carell in the first Anchorman, but I like him as part of the ensemble. I never really saw him have scenes by himself as much as they have in this film, especially his thing with Kristen Wiig. I don't know if that's because Steve Carell's a bigger star now or what's going on with that exactly, but it didn't really work for me as much. I really just like Brick when he's with the rest of the cast. Will Ferrell, I think, is really in top form, and I haven't seen him be this hilarious since at least The Other Guys, and probably even longer than that. He was really, really funny. This whole film is centered around him and him giving an amazing comedic performance. The majority of the time I laughed, the reason is because of him. I don't think it's as good as the first Anchorman, but it's probably one of his better performances since the first Anchorman. The main reason you're seeing Anchorman 2 is to laugh and to have a good time, especially when you have things in the multiplex like 12 Years a Slave and all this serious Oscar stuff, and you see Anchorman 2, it does feel like some nice levity at this time. It definitely provides that, and it's a nice, silly comedy. It's not as good as the first Anchorman, but did you expect it to? Did I expect it to? No. Like, who in their right mind would ever think this would live up to that? But for like what I expected, I guess it's like just a little bit lower than what I expected it to be. It's a little bit lower than you'd think with all this talent there and everything it has going for it. I laughed quite a bit from it, and I think it's a decent enough comedy sequel. You know, I'll probably never see it again, but in the end, I don't think that even matters because, you know, I went to have a good time and they gave it to me. You know, sure, it's not going to be as memorable and unforgettable as the first Anchorman, which I did not see coming. For comedy sequels, it's not Caddyshack 2, but it's a lot better than, what was that DVD sequel thing, Wake Up Ron Burgundy. It's a funny movie, it's a silly movie. I just wish Adam McKay had maybe tightened it up a little bit and cut out all of his, you know, liberalisms he's liked to sprinkle into his movies lately. But other than that, I thought it was very funny. So if you have seen Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.